Thank you everybody for coming. It means a lot to me. This is really, I'd say, a story of personal curiosity. I've always been interested in what is going on in the world and why we're all here and making some meaning out of this experience that we have, and really finding my own place in it. And I've always had interests in ancient cultures and religions. I ended up going to school in my late 20s to study physics, just driven by curiosity, really. And more recently, I'd say, embarked on a path of deepening my understanding, pulling myself out of the material world a little bit into some more personal experience and discovery. And so I created this presentation, trying to pull together these pretty vast topics, and I could probably talk about this for a very long time, but I'll do my best to try to fit it into our available time. So the first question is, what the heck is going on? And honestly, I have no idea, and I talked to a very wise person who you will maybe see later in this presentation, who told me that nobody really knows. But we could try to find out, and we do our best to try to make some sense of it. And there's a few approaches to do this. One is what I call a bottom-up approach, which is modern physics. And so it's really, ground up, where we make observations and measurements, and from there, these very abstract concepts arise, really powered by mathematics. And it's really going into the realm of philosophy these days. But what people expect from physics in today's world is a lot more than just explaining how things work. It's really, you're looking to, as John Wheeler says, a magic window into the infinite, and we're not satisfied with only insights in particles, fields, geometry. We demand an understanding of existence itself. The other approach is a top-down approach, which is through mysticism. And there have been people who've been curious about reality for as long as humans have been here. And they had a lot of time to develop spiritual practices and to dive really deep into their practices and have very profound experiences. And entire cultures have been devoted to this. And they've combined all of their experience into myths and spiritual teachings. And those have been passed down to us and are available to us. And here's one profound ancient concept called Maya, which is this creative force behind the illusion. And so really what Lama Anagarika Govinda is saying here is that Maya really means that we have a limited perspective. And what is the illusion is that we think what we see every day, is all of reality. And that's the illusion, because there is an absolute reality which is much larger than this. I'd say the most convincing approach is from personal mystical experiences, because you could take what people say, these physicists, these spiritual teachers, these ancient books, but really, how do you know that it's not just a bunch of bullshit or just made up stuff? Well, you can know by doing the things the mystics do, direct firsthand experience. And there's different paths and ways to go about doing this. These are just 4 of them, which I find to be very powerful. I have not experienced all 4 of them. But the first is psychedelics and plant medicines. A second would be sacred sexuality and tantra, which a lot of ancient cultures have this in their systems of practice, and for good reason. near-death experiences, which is not something you want to practice, but seems to be a really great gift given to the people who are able to come back, and very life-changing, and shatters their concept of what reality is and what their lives mean. And then the fourth here is dreams, which are something that we all experience every night on an average of 5 times, 5 dreams a night on average, although we don't remember most of them, though you can if you try. And to me, these are actually all the same thing, maybe different faces of the same thing or aspects of the same thing. Because when I sit with ayahuasca, I have hypnagogic imagery, which I also have when I'm trying to induce a lucid dream. Same exact thing, just random images popping up, little clips of things, little downloads of knowledge. It's very dreamlike. And with Tantra, in dreams, the pleasure centers of our brain are lit up, completely lit up, and so many other parts of our brain are turned off, just similar to Tantra. And actually, there's been some recent scientific studies that have compared magic mushroom ceremony and orgasms, and the consensus was actually, I think it was about 62% orgasms created mystical experiences, and 54% magic mushrooms did. So actually, there's some juice there, and this is also something that is somewhat of a revival is going on with that right now. Near-death experiences. When I hear the stories of near-death experiences, they sound like a shared dream to me. There's a common theme and some archetypal similarities, similar storyline, and out-of-body experiences. But also there's a flavor of like personal symbolism going on with the person's belief system and history and culture. And out-of-body experiences are also something that happen in lucid dreams. When I'm trying to lucid dream, out-of-body experiences happening too. So to me, it's all dreaming. And in this talk, I'm going to be sharing a lot of personal experiences, because this is a personal story, and my most inspirational stories I've heard have been through my own dream teachers of their own dreams and their own personal experiences. So I'll be sharing a lot of lucid dreams relevant to what I'm talking about, and I just want to go through just this past year, since I've really embraced dream work, some things I've experienced, such as telepathy, which blew my mind. I actually won the Dream Telepathy Contest at the International Dream Conference, which is a conference of scientists. They all know that dream telepathy exists because there have been scientific studies that have shown this for decades. It's just a little bit too out there for the mainstream world, but the dream scientists who work at Harvard and other universities, they just know about that. Precognition. Anyone who does dream work and records their dreams for long enough will go back to their dream journals and be like, oh yeah, I can't believe I dreamed that a year before it happened. That happened to me about a month ago when I was reading my dream journal to my daughter. Seeing people you meet in a couple weeks, like that's happened to me. Seeing the 2 teams who will play in the Super Bowl this year. I saw that 2 months before it happened. Like that, it just happens all the time. Direct verbal advice I've been given. Full body orgasms, like head to toe. Hormones in my body first half of the day, a great day. Highly erotic moments, unrestrained laughter, like more than I maybe ever have, or since I was a small child. Like I woke myself up because I thought I might actually be laughing in the waking world and waking up my neighbors. And wonderful healing hugs. Some dream figures give such great hugs. And these are say how unrestrained our emotions are in dreams. There's no blockages. You go from 0 to 100 so quickly with this stuff. I've experienced being other people, from small girls to Native American warriors to lion cubs, physical healing of actually being sick and being worked on in a doctor's office in a massage chair and waking up feeling totally healed, deep psychological shifts. That one. Recently I had a lucid dream where I looked in a mirror. I had long hair, which is a dream trigger for mine, because I had long hair just 6 months ago or something. So did he. But I see in the mirror, there's probably 16 versions of childlike versions of myself. And they're all crying and angry and upset. And I start consoling them and telling them I love them and that everything will be okay. And after just a short amount of time, they all started smiling at me. I asked them what they want, and they all said, we want to play with Pomelo, who is my daughter's best friend. They all just wanted to play. Totally original music. This is something I actually used to be a composer, and I really want to start working on pulling it out of the dream world, because I always remember it in the dream, and then I wake up and it goes away. It's like, oh man, I need to record that. Investment advice that has worked, down to like being told the day Bitcoin will go on the next bull run, probably 2 weeks before it happened, and it did on that day. Past life memories, that's like, I like seeing someone who could have been my mate aging in these memories over probably about 4 decades, and being told it was a past life. And ET contact. Like, I've been stared at a room like this with gray aliens all looking at me. So this stuff is it seems pretty out there, but history is filled with stories like this. And really, in the dream work circles, there's 3 main types of dreams that they talk about: symbolic, precognitive, and otherworldly. Where with Jungian analysis and stuff, everything's simple. People can have just very literal precognitive dreams sometimes, and there's always stories of traveling to other realms or meeting other intelligences. Like one of these stories would be Joseph interpreting the Pharaoh's dream of the 7 fat cows and 7 skinny cows, which is a combination of a symbolic and a precognitive dream. There's Jacob's stairway to heaven, where he lied down on a rock while running away from his brother, and he dreamed of a staircase to heaven where God spoke to him, and he changed his name to Israel. That would be an otherworldly dream. And then there's also the one Abraham Lincoln had a few days before his assassination, where he dreamed the president was assassinated, and he shared that dream with his wife and a circle of friends. So the Department of Defense is aware of this too, because if this is at all possible, they have to at least try and see, if travel to other realms and gaining information from the future is possible. Well, they started something. This is a declassified letter about something called the gateway process, where some officer was tasked, along with a physician, to go through gateway training for the gateway experience. And he found it very difficult, he says, and he had to also put a different language around this to remove the kind of occult stigma from it, and put it in a language and framework of modern physics, which he did because there's concepts in physics such as the holographic principle that we will get into later that says, yeah, this could be just one of many realities existing in a multiverse. He looked into human consciousness and quantum mechanics, and how quantum mechanics can give rise to our conscious experience. And what it really was, it was kind of like transcendental meditation while listening to binaural beats, which they called hemisync frequencies. But they would sit in meditative trances, listening to binaural beats for a long time, and they would develop these things called these advanced techniques, which they would number, and one of them was interacting with other dimensions. Right? The other ones were accessing information from the past, information from the future. And what he says at the end of this, near the end of this letter, is that aside from this kind of hemisync transcendental meditation method, dreams could be used for a method to achieve all of the techniques, all of the most advanced techniques, without, binaural beats. And that pretty much fits with, it's always been told in history and from modern dream workers. So we will be going through different cosmologies, and I wanted to start with the oldest one, coming from Australia. And the Australian Aboriginals have an unbroken line of culture going back at least 40 to 50,000 years based off of archaeological evidence. And it's really, their story is about, or the cosmology is about something called the Dreamtime, also known as the dreaming, where there is this infinite reality of dreaming happening, and these spirits arose out of a flat earth and gave form to the earth themselves. And actually, if this works, I was afraid this might happen.
Are you wanting it?
Is there a video yet? Yeah, if you could play a video. There's a beautiful movie I saw that explains the cosmology and it tells the story in a much better way I can. So, yeah, let's give this movie a watch.
Looks like it's not playing.
It's not playing? Okay. If it doesn't play, I will just tell this story myself. There was a great spirit who nothing created that dreamed all of existence into being. And the spirit somewhat left it as it is so that these animal spirit gods could arise from the earth and give form to the earth. And he passes dreaming on to, I think, first a turtle, and goes through a kangaroo, and all the animals that are found in Australia. And each one would make different landforms. And the rainbow serpent would create all the waterways, and it was also responsible for creating our blood, anything really fluid. These are called the Wagina. And it's really, some of this, I'll get to this soon, but part of this concept of the dreaming is that it's always here behind everything. It's almost like in the moon. We imagine a crescent moon in the sky. The moon's a circle, but you can only see the crescent. But if you really look, you can see that it's a full circle. And so the dreaming is the whole circle itself. And what it does, it almost gives us the impulse to act. It's like behind everything. And it exists. And in Aboriginal culture, they perform rituals that can continue the dreaming. The dreaming has been passed to humans, from the spirits to the humans, and we sustain it through ritual and spiritual practices. Yeah. So I'm going to share one lucid dream I had, which I'm going to do throughout this related to topics I'll be talking about. This one reminds me of the cosmology of the dreaming because, you'll see. So, and before I really get into it, I want to talk about the modality I use here. It was taught to me by one of my dream teachers, Robert Wagner, who had, I think, one of the most important dreams ever, where he discovered that you could prompt the dream itself. You could shout to the sky some kind of prompt or question, kind of like how you can to ChatGPT or something, and it will respond to you. It doesn't always respond to me, but I'd say it does the majority of the time. And when it does, it's really awesome. And so this is actually one of my first days. I think I have 3 dreams in here from one day. It was really powerful when I was just really starting to become serious about lucid dreaming. And I had 3 dreams in one night where I prompted. And so the first one, I shouted up to the sky. Okay, here it is. It was nighttime. I'm on a lawn, and there's trees, and there's stars in the sky. And I shout, "Show me something interesting, and thank you," because you're supposed to thank the dream. And all of a sudden, I fall through the ground, and I'm falling through this space, and I fall through another layer of some kind of 2-dimensional plane, and it feels kind of like how the ground did, but I keep on falling through these layers. And I turn and look up after falling through about 3 layers, and I see that each layer is an infinite 2-dimensional grid of dream objects. There's trees and buildings and cars, mainly, and some other things. And together, they make an infinite 3-dimensional grid. of objects that my dream mind used to create the landscape. And then all of a sudden I land on a layer, and it's the new dream ground, and it's made of trees and buildings and cars, and I just start flying around, really, until I wake up. Yeah. Here's another cosmology. This one comes from the Celts, and it's of the Celtic Otherworld, which is an unseen neighboring reality where fairies live, and the deceased, and other spirit beings. And it's actually accessible at certain times of the year, special times of the year, such as the New Year, which is October 31st, different like spring equinox, and also in certain natural places like forests and lakes and wells. And the fairies would sometimes come out, and there's tons of stories, first-hand accounts back in the day when there's a cool book here you get about this, of people seeing fairies and stuff. And the leaders of the religion were the Druids. And they go back really, really far. This is very ancient stuff. Let's go back very far into ancient Europe, all over Europe. And unfortunately, they didn't believe in writing down anything, so it was mostly passed on verbally and recorded in the Middle Ages by scribes. But the Druids were equated with the Magi, the Brahmins, and the Egyptian priests during ancient Rome. Julius Caesar was obsessed with them. They believed in reincarnation, and they were fearless warriors because they didn't really care about dying because they knew they'd live again. And they believed that you could travel to the other worlds in dreams. And they had some funny rituals sometimes about how they would do this, like they'd eat the meat of a white bull, and they hold on the bull's cheeks while 4 druids chanted as the person fell asleep, and they were wearing the bull's hide. Like they had these funny rituals, but dreams were away. So here's another lucid dream. This is a more recent one when I was reading this book on the Celtic fairy faith. And again, it was nighttime, I guess, which was common in my dreams. And I look up to the sky and I say, "Take me to the underworld." Oh no, not the underworld, the otherworld, the Celtic otherworld. So, oops, I almost went to the underworld, but luckily I didn't. Maybe I'll go there next time. I was shot into the sky, and I look down and I see that I'm over a city. And below me is a purple Pegasus with a woman sitting on it, and they jump into the sky in a parabolic arc, and they pass right in front of me. And as they start to go down, I start to follow them, just naturally. I'm not trying to do any of this. And I see that we're about to land in a green square. It was like a city block, but it was all green. It was lined by big trees filled with grass. And I hit the ground, and standing right in front of me is a pink, furry cat person in a blue tuxedo with a frilly shirt. And he's just smiling at me. And so he's super calm and confident and happy. And I just hover by its face, and I ask it, "Who are you?" And it says something to me. There are 3 words, and it must have been its name, and it is a language I didn't recognize. And then I woke up, and I was so sleepy, but I repeated its name out loud probably 10 times and decided that I would remember it when I'm going to fall back asleep and write it down when I get up. I said it enough, I should remember it. I woke up and I didn't remember the name. That's too bad. That was a big lesson. Here is Vishnu's dream. Okay, so this is another cosmology coming from ancient India, from the Upanishads. And it's their story of creation is that there is a big multiverse out there, and it's all part of Vishnu's dream. Vishnu is the god of creation, and he is sleeping on a giant serpent that represents time, and they are floating on a sea of cosmic consciousness. And from Vishnu's belly, as he sleeps, grows a big lotus on which the god Brahma emerges, who is the sustainer. And Brahma is responsible for manifesting this reality. And anyway, when the dream ends, this all ends. And we're all dream figures, and there's an infinite number of other realities. And this process of him going to sleep, of Brahma, waking, dying, and coming, another form of Brahma coming out, this just happens forever. Okay, I deleted the slide. I probably shouldn't have, because I thought we'd have some videos to watch, but now that I have more time, I'll just say that the ancient Hindus assigned time scales to all this, and that the existence of one universe is something like 8.5 billion years, which is on at least the order of magnitude that modern cosmology is saying this universe exists for. And Carl Sagan noted that when he was alive, and he thought it was pretty awesome. Anyway, this concept brought another curiosity to me, which is that if I may be a dream figure in some god's dream, and I know that I'm having my own experience, because I think, therefore, I am, what about the dream figures in my dreams? Are they having their own experience? Are they that different than me? Are they just puppets or like NPCs from video games who just walk around and seem like they're intelligent? And the dreams is making them seem that way? Or are they really having their own subjective experience? Do they dream, and do they exist outside of the dream? Is this something like some infinite fractal, where the dream people in my dream have dream people in their dreams, and so on? So I started to conduct, I guess, an experiment. I'd actually do this with a friend, where I have lucid dreams, and I start asking questions, like testing their memory. Like, hey, what was the last thing you ate? Do you remember your parents? Where were you born? Do you think you exist? Things like this, right? So here, this is one. You have a question, yeah?
Yeah, can you define a lucid dream?
Oh, yeah, a lucid dream, of course. A lucid dream is a dream where you are aware that you're dreaming. It's like you're awake, but you're in a dream. It's just like being here, except actually this is just a dream. And you essentially feel like a god in your dream, like I would be able to make this chair levitate. I know maybe super powerful people perhaps could do that, but in a dream it's a hell of a lot easier. I could float, I could just walk right through a wall, just things like that. You're almost like a ghost or a god. Yeah. But it's not as stable as this. It's very difficult to not wake up or fall back into a dream. Yeah, so that's the trick. Anyway, so in this one, this is a really cool lucid dream where music was actually playing, and I ended up seeing this building, and I opened the door to walk into this building, and I was like, wait, this is a dream. I closed it, and I just floated right through it. And I looked to my left, and there's this guy walking towards me. And seems like he's in his mid-60s. He's working on something. He's wearing overalls. He reminds me of a fisherman or something like that. And I go up to him and I ask him, hey, buddy, how are you? He says, I'm good. And we shake hands. And I ask him, the first question I could think of, which is, how old are you? And he goes, I'm 25. And so I said, you're 25? You don't look a day over 65. And I go, big pat. And I said, do you know this is a dream? You're this guy now, Lance. And he stops walking. He goes, this a dream? And I say, yeah, this is a dream. And he says, nobody really knows. Here's another interesting one. So unfortunately, I didn't draw her face this time. I wasn't planning on doing this experiment this night, but this has happened. I was flying at night over an outdoor stage with chairs, and there was a big audience, and someone was walking onto the stage to give a speech. And I see an open chair, and I just fly right down, sit there. And I look next to me, and there's a woman in her 40s with brown hair and bangs, and I ask her, can I ask you a question? And she says, sure. And I ask, do you dream? And she looks at me and she's like, yes. Like it was totally obvious, like, yes, I dream. And I ask her, would you share one of your dreams with me? And she says, I feel disinclined to. The speech is about to start. And she was actually kind of angry at me and thought it was a stupid question. Or like just like inappropriate. Yeah. This next one is, I was having a dream. I was at this podcast studio. There's this band playing music. It was super cool. And then when they finished, I went up to one of the band members, this woman in her 30s. She was wearing a jean jacket. And I went up to her and I said, who are you? What's your name? And she has to think about everything else. She goes, Mikkel. And so I ask her, do you remember your parents? And she goes, yeah. And I ask her, what are they like? Ayahuasca-like. I pay for them. Hermetes online. And I ask, are they ill? And she says, no. And then I wake up. Yeah. I'll get back to the Hermetes online thing. And maybe I'll touch on the ayahuasca thing for a second, too. This one seemed to really know what was going on. I was kind of entering the dream state, and it was kind of fuzzy, and I was attempted to ask two different characters if they're conscious. But each time the dream broke up, it wasn't stable enough yet. So finally, in the third try, I see like half this woman's face, and I ask her, can you see me? And all of a sudden, it snaps into full focus, and she's right there. And she says, yes. And I ask her, are you conscious? Do you have your own experience? And she says, yes. And I ask her, do you know you're a dream figure? Oh, yeah. How long have you known this? About a month and a half. How did you come into existence? Oh, through a drug-like, psychedelic. She's thinking how to convey the concept, like really hard. And I ask, from ayahuasca? And she says, no, not ayahuasca. And at this point, I feel the dream starting to kind of break up a little bit, and I just ask her, what's your name? She says, Delise Lanasalega. And then I was like, there's more. I was like, Denise? She's like, Delise. I was like, Delise Lanasalega? She's like, Delise Lanasalega. Delise means pleasure, I learned. This whole ayahuasca thing. It seems to me like coming into existence for dream figures is a psychedelic experience. I don't know how much of this is contamination on my part, but I think this is how it is because I know that I had a really powerful ayahuasca journey a little more over a year ago where I felt like kind of this death experience, and then I had a remembering of what it felt like to be an embryo in my mother's womb coming into consciousness. And it was really trippy. And I was like, oh, that's what that feels like. Oh, This is kind of when I started to believe in past lives, actually. This is on this night, I would say. A couple of you were there. Anyway, it seems like they agree. At least my dream figures. And I'd be pretty curious as to other people's dream figures if they could ask them the same question. Anyway, this Hermetes Online thing. I've been curious about ancient culture and ancient religion my whole life, especially starting when I was 18 and I took a world religions class. But I had never heard about Hermeticism until a few months ago. And I don't know how it slipped by. Luckily, I shared that dream with the Hermetes Online statement with a friend of mine, and she said, oh, that sounds to me like Hermeticism. Hermes Trismegistus. Only recently did I walk by the Hermeticus bookstore on B Street, and now I know where that name comes from. But yes, Hermeticism was a mystical philosophy created in the Hellenistic period, probably in the golden age of Alexandria, which would have been in between the golden age of Athens and Rome, where the great library of Alexandria was. And it was a combination of ancient Egyptian and Greek wisdom and teachings, founded by this mythical figure Hermes Trismegistus, the thrice great Hermes, who seems to be a combination of Hermes and Thoth. They're both gods were associated with magic, knowledge, writing, and at the core of this Hermetic teaching is that there is a universal truth at the core of every religion. Every true religion has the same thing at its center. And really what it's speaking to is, these are mystical traditions. These are mystical experiences the creators of these traditions had and created these religions. And it's all the same stuff. And surrounded by it are, some cultural uniqueness and maybe some mythology and stuff. But at its core, it's the same. Another big concept here is the idea of gnosis, which is this kind of merging with the divine. It's an experiential understanding of divine. And it aims to go through a profound connection with the divine where once you attain gnosis, you could end the cycle of constant rebirth, death and rebirth, and lead to spiritual immortality. And that sure sounds a lot similar to what the Hindus were saying and the Buddhists and the Taoists, the early Christians, as well as actually, Australian Aboriginals. Their shamans would go through initiation rites of death and rebirth, or the Druids who were teaching about rebirth, right? Even this goes into Kabbalah and Sufism. I mean, every single mystical religion believes this, you find. So we can also explore past lives in dreams. I think I had mentioned one of just a standard kind of dream when I'm asleep, but I had a couple times, I'm planning to do this a lot more, actually gone after it in a lucid dream. So this is a wake-induced lucid dream, which is one where you're lying awake and you actually feel yourself fall asleep, feel your body fall asleep, and a dream form around you. And as I was falling asleep, I was repeating in my head, show me a past life, show me a past life, show me a past life. Well, I find my dream body lying on a moving train in a tunnel, a dark tunnel at night. And I'm breathing, and I'm lying there, I'm hoping the dream's stabilized, and I don't wake up. And right when I think I might wake up, if nothing changes, I see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I move, and I get up, and the train emerges, and there is a hill going down. And at the bottom of a hill is a small town whose main street is perpendicular to the direction the train is going, and the tracks go at a right angle. And it's nighttime, and all the stores are closed, except for the one directly ahead, which has its lights on, and is a Chinese restaurant. And as soon as the train starts descending the hill, I jump, and I kind of squirrel suit fly straight down and right through what looks like this glass window, and land to my feet in this Chinese restaurant. And I just say, hello, just like that. And it's empty except for 4 people to my left. There's 2 people cooking, and right next to them a table with 2 people sitting, and they're all Chinese. And I just walk up to them, and I go to the closest guy, and I just go like this. I pat him on the shoulder, this is what my teacher told me to do, and I ask him, show me a past life aspect of myself. Just like that. And he just looks at me, and he goes, fuck. And then he puts his hands on his knees. He puts his hands on his knees, he goes, okay. And he looks me right in the eyes like this. And we're just staring at each other's faces. And his face just slightly morphs. And I'm just staring at the face of a young Chinese man with a shaved head. He's just smiling and looks super peaceful and serene. And after about 5 seconds of that, I wake up. Yeah. I don't know why I haven't tried that again since then. All right, so we're talking about this universal religion. And today, we have physics, which serves a similar function in our society as religions did in the ancient world, and still in this world, where it's this, this teaching of what is true. And we have these physicists who are these holders of knowledge, who have these specialized esoteric training in how to understand reality and how to essentially talk to God through mathematics, through rigorous training. This is and so I just want to see if this fits with Hermeticism, which has the 7 Hermetic principles. Principle of mentalism, correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. So we're going to go backwards, starting from number 7, the principle of gender. So, gender is in everything. Everything has its masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. So, to me, gender means not things that are opposite from each other, but things that complement each other to create something else that's even bigger than the two things are together. And yes, this does exist in physics. It's called the Standard Model of Elementary Particles. And specifically, I'm talking about quarks, these guys. Quarks come in pairs. There's the up, down, the charm and strange, and the top and bottom. And they come in pairs because they have the same properties, like the same charge, but their spin is different. They make up, as you see here, 3 quarks combine to make up a proton. They also, 3 quarks combine a different way to make up a neutron. There's other particles in the Standard Model that also come in pairs. Like you see, there's electron, neutrino, right? A muon, neutrino. And so yeah, there we go. And these are the smallest particles we know of. There's number 6, the principle of cause and effect. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. This is a pretty obvious one. There's obviously Newton's third law, which has cause and effect. But there's something a lot deeper than this, and that is David Bohm's interpretation of quantum theory. So there's this particular part of this, which I'll get in this principle. It's that chance is but a name for law not recognized. Now, in quantum theory today, in the normal interpretations, the Copenhagen interpretation or the different ones Heisenberg may have, is that everything is a potential and a probability. Like something, and it's all random. There are probabilities, an electron might have probability to be here or there. It might be like 70% it's going to be here and 30% here. But then it's like a kind of roll of the dice, and then it'll more likely appear here. But it might appear here. Like that's kind of how the idea of quantum mechanics works in like the accepted view today. But David Bohm, who had written one of the first textbooks in quantum theory, ended up kind of getting sick of physics for a while and going deep into philosophy. He was really good friends with Krishnamurti. He was friends with Dalai Lama. And he has some pretty famous conversations with Krishnamurti, if you ever heard of the book, The Ending of Time. And he went on to continue to develop physics more. And he has a different interpretation of quantum physics, which is just as mathematically correct and fitting experimentation. It's just a much, much more profound, deep view of reality. And he calls it wholeness and the implicate order. Let's get into this a little bit. So there's the Schrodinger equation. There's Schrodinger's cat. And there's a couple things here. I'll get into it. I'm just trying to piece it together and I'll tell the story. But the implicit order is represented here by the wave function, which you see on both sides of the equation here. And it's this kind of it's known as the quantum potential. It's not manifest, but it's essentially how particles will collapse into their own particle as opposed to being a wave. And so he has this whole idea of the hollow movement, which includes many layers of reality. The first one is this one, which is the explicit order. This is this world. The one behind it is the implicit order, which is the wave function here and the quantum potential. It's deeper, more hidden, but in it everything's interconnected, which actually is pretty profound because a natural part of this theory is something called non-locality, meaning that information can travel faster than the speed of light. And then what did they find exists? Quantum entanglement, which is information going faster than the speed of light. And although there's not really any explanation in the mainstream quantum world, David Bohm's interpretation, it's just an inherent part of it, that something like entanglement would occur. And behind the implicate order is a super implicate order, which without it, the implicate order wouldn't be able to give form to the explicit order. It almost guides in a more intelligent way, the implicate order, to create this manifest world. And the higher you go, the deeper you go to the super implicate order, the more mental things become and the less material. And there's an infinite amount of orders called the hollow movement. And in it, he says that the randomness we think we're seeing in the quantum world is only because of our lack of perspective. Because if we go deeper and deeper and knew what the super implicate order was and what's beyond that, it wouldn't be random anymore. And there's actually, just last year, there's a scientific study came out that really goes hand in hand with what he was saying even a long time ago. Interestingly enough, they're using the same mathematics that David Bohm was using to conduct this quantum experiment, this Hamilton-Jacobi equation, which was actually invented in the 1900s, way before, but they hit on some profound truth there. And what happens is they have this quantum measuring device, and they make these predictions or whatever. But what they find is that they cannot remove the measurement device from the quantum state that's going on. Like even the future affects the past of how this is. Like even throughout time, everything is connected as a whole. And there's no way to escape it. There's this wholeness. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I love having kids around. So
are you saying it's kind of like, to us it looks like chance, but it's only because we can't see infinity?
yeah.
But like infinity is happening with all these things, and the one that happens is the one we look at and put attention to, kind of.
Totally. Yeah. Lack of perspective. It's just the same as the concept of Maya that the Tibetan Lama was saying. Maya is an illusion because we don't see the absolute whole reality. That's exactly what David Bohm is saying.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, let's go on to number 5, the principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. All right, this is a pretty easy one, and I won't go too deep into this, but it's pretty much describing light. Light is an electric field that builds up in intensity, and it causes, and then it goes into the magnetic field. And it's this energy going from the magnetic field to the electric field, back and forth. So, and that's light. Light travels this way, as electric fields going this way, and magnetic this way, and light's going that way. And these are all encoded in Maxwell's equations here, which you don't need to try to understand, but they're pretty cool. All right, number 4, the principle of polarity. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degrees. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. So we see this all over the place in physics. Magnets have poles. Electrons spin. Electrons are either up or down. And then all of a sudden, look at this standard model of elementary particles just got twice as big because that includes antimatter now, which is exactly like matter, but totally opposite in time. So antimatter was predicted by Paul Dirac when he was working on this equation here. He discovered that it had 2 solutions. One was energy times time, the product of energy and time, and the other was negative energy times time. And so he predicted antimatter from this. And he thought, okay, these are particles with negative energy. And he had this whole idea about it of energy wells. An antiproton is an energy well. Anyway, he won the Nobel Prize for this 4 years later when antimatter was discovered, but his whole energy well idea never really caught on. It's too complex. Richard Feynman comes along and invents Feynman diagrams, quantum field theory, to try to make computations of particle scatterings possible. What he finds is that antimatter acts just like normal matter, except you just have to reverse the direction of time. Yeah, and so he says antimatter acts like matter traveling backward in time. And so, even today, so okay, I'll say this. Mathematics has always driven physics, but physicists have always been adverse to accepting what mathematics says, point blank. Like, for example, the invention of quantum theory by Max Planck, he did a mathematical trick to try to make the data they were seeing fit the curve. The mathematics fit the curve of the data. It was just a trick. He didn't like it at all. But it invented quantum theory. He quantized units of energy, like energy is in discrete units, 1, 2, 3, 4, not 1.5, and onward. And invented quantum physics. With this, St. Paul Dirac did it with antimatter, right? But if they didn't discover antimatter in the laboratory, no one would have really thought that was true. But there's a lot of things mathematics are saying that we can't test. And physicists don't accept any of that. They try to remove it from their theories, such as like tachyons described in string theory, which naturally arise out of string theory. Tachyons have imaginary mass, or can travel faster than the speed of light. But they're like, oh, that doesn't exist. That's unphysical and crazy. They call these things crazy or unphysical. Yeah, okay, unfortunately I didn't remove slides, so that would be too long, but I wish I could say it. Antimatter literally is matter going back in time. And the biggest mystery in physics right now, said by, let's say Michio Kaku said this, is where is all the antimatter? Because when they smash particles together in the Large Hadron Collider, it turns into this quark gluon plasma, which then condenses into brand new particles. And half of them are antimatter and half of them are matter. And so in the Big Bang, when the whole universe was a quark gluon plasma, half of the universe should have become antimatter. But where is all antimatter? But there is just one very simple solution that if physicists could open their minds, realize if antimatter is just matter going backwards in time, well, all the antimatter is before the Big Bang going that way. It's just a mirror image. Yeah. So, all right, number 3. Principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Yeah, this is a simple one to match to. String theory. String theory, now we have the standard model of particles here, and they're all different vibrations. They're just vibrating, one-dimensional vibrating strings, but they're vibrating in many dimensions. Here's different versions of string theory, but actually they're all the same thing. The most brilliant person in the world has somehow combined this all together into one mathematical framework. Who is that? Edward Witten. And I would say arguably the most brilliant person in the world, because you never know. And so, yeah, they're all vibrating in 10 dimensions. So anyway, we just can't see. Each of our 3 dimensions seem to be compactified. This is the way they compactify them into these extra dimensions you can't see. Anyway, string theory is really cool because it combines, gravity just arises out of it and quantum particles naturally. And the quantum physicists have been trying to make quantum gravity forever, and they cannot do it. And so this can do it, and it's brought pretty profound revelations into black holes, for instance. But it's kind of hitting a wall at the same time. And in my view, it's because they have so many spatial dimensions, but for them, time is still just one dimension and going that way, right? I think that's the major hang-up for them. But they do have this other cool concept here, which is that So this universe can exist in the framework of string theory, but so can an infinite number of other universes. And it's Leonard Susskind, one of the founders, has this cool analogy I heard recently, which is that there is a biological analogy for our universe, and that's DNA. It's like our universe was given DNA, right? Like they're you. You have your own DNA, and you're our universe. Well, there could be an infinite number of other organisms that have their own DNA, and that's what string theory says. Yeah. All right, Principle 2, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. And this is kind of going on with the whole like Vishnu thing and me asking dream figures questions, right? But in physics, I would say there's the holographic principle. And we actually also say one shout out to Mount Meru in Hindu philosophy, which is that the whole universe at the center has Mount Meru, and so does our hearts. It's like the same. They also had this concept. But anyway, the holographic principle is I guess inspired by holographic film, where it's amazing. You could take a tiny little chunk out of this film, and you could reconstruct a 3D model of this entire object you took the picture of. Because in every single part of the film, there's an interference pattern, which contains all the three-dimensional information of the object itself. And so they named this concept in things like string theory, the holographic principle, as here where our universe is a surface floating through a higher dimensional space. And this surface is our four-dimensional space-time. Floating through something called a five-dimensional anti-de Sitter space-time. And there's superstrings floating around, and this is a black hole. And also, I have to say, David Bohm also says that out of the implicit order, the explicit order is just a hologram, and an infinite number of explicit orders probably and should exist. Yeah. So this holographic principle. All right, I wanted to show a movie here. Well, let's talk about it for a second. Maybe some of you have heard of it. It's The Powers of 10 by Charles Eames. You've all heard of that? Yeah, so my mother was hired by Charles Eames to paint half of that from the skin cell all the way down to the corks. And he would have physicists from UCLA come and explain to her what a cork is, which they just discovered, or what a DNA strand is, which they just discovered, and she would make oil paintings of it. And then her boyfriend at the time invented this, who worked for Charles Eames too, invented a little train track with a camera on it, to zoom closer and closer into her painting, and then they just splice the slides together and make the whole video. And it was conducted by Elmer Bernstein, who was a big hero of mine when I was studying film composition, and it was a cool movie. Anyway, here it is, but I don't think it'll play. So let's go on. All right, the first principle, and the most important one here, the principle of mentalism. All is mind, the universe is mental. This could go back as far as the philosopher Anaxagoras from ancient Greece, who said that the universe is all mind, and there's big swirling spirals out there, and stuff like that. Also, I guess it goes back to the dreaming and Vishnu, right? Today we call this panpsychism. My 5-year-old daughter chose this image for me, so I was getting tired of picking images, and so I ended up liking this one too. Oh yeah. Okay, let me say one thing about panpsychism. If you guys know who Rupert Sheldrake is, he had a cool thing he said, that consciousness seems to have to do with vibrating electrical fields, which exist in nature, and especially in stars. So like the sun has these vibrating electromagnetic fields, and they exist in our brain. He says they exist in stars, and the sun is probably conscious. Maybe it can even choose things like which direction to send a solar flare so it doesn't hit Earth or hits Earth. Anyway, this is another dream I had the same night as that Show Me Something Interesting dream. Actually, I think this was the first of the three. And this, again, is a direct prompt that I read from Robert Wagner, which was Fly Me to the Stars. So I'm standing again on grass with trees on a lawn, and I see stars above me. And I look up, and I just say, fly me to the stars. and I just shoot like a rocket into the sky. And all of a sudden, I'm flying through stars like I'm in Star Trek or Star Wars or something. But I notice that maybe 1 out of every 100 stars looks different than other ones. It's this pulsating electromagnetic field around it that's kind of glowing green and orange as these tentacles coming out on one side. Kind of reminds me of a jellyfish. And so I pass 1 or 2, and then the next one I see coming up, and I go to it as close as I can, and I'm just kind of flying around it and looking at it, and just going, wow, that thing's conscious. And then I wake up.
Great.
Okay. Oh, I thought I'd have to skip this because we didn't have time, but since we can't watch videos, I could get a little bit into it. This is my favorite theory of consciousness. Does anyone know about Oort theory? Yes? Okay. This is my favorite theory of consciousness. Have you heard of it? It's invented by Roger Penrose, who's a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, and Stuart Hammerhoff, who's a neuroscientist and anesthesiologist, who's pretty fascinated with what happens in the brain when people are under anesthesia. So they came up with this idea that there are quantum effects happening in our brain. And there are these things,
Is what happening?
quantum effects.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm a little stuffed up. I've been a little sick recently. So there's these things called microtubules that are very small, and they exist in every cell in our body. They especially exist in high amounts in our prefrontal cortex. And here they are, these little lines in this nerve fiber. And what's happening are these little nodes on here, and they could go in an on or off state. And they seem to act like a cellular automaton, if anyone's heard of that before. And they vibrate in a quantum way and exchange information, and based off of the previous state, the next state changes. And so this pattern, this moving pattern arises in these microtubules. And what's happening is the wave function, these are so small that quantum effects are happening, and the wave function is collapsing into, you see the wave function happening here, and things go into probabilities, and they collapse back into a definite form. And they say that the collapse of the wave function is consciousness. That is why we're conscious. Because it kind of fits a little bit with David Bohm was saying, that the higher you go in orders, the more mental it becomes. And so you're going from the implicit order, it collapses into the explicit order. And so this consciousness is kind of coming top down. They're not as profound as David Bohm. They think that that's the end of the story. These things collapse into a wave function collapses, and that experience is consciousness itself. There's obviously a lot more going on, but there were a lot of naysayers against this theory who said that, hey, in order to have experiment with quantum effects, we need to have these huge machines that are on many shock absorbers, and we cool it down to a few microkelvin, which is as cold as is possible. But just recently, and the brain is hot and wet, and they're saying there's no way. Anyway, this is a whole fascinating concept created by John von Neumann, who was a really incredible genius. And he invented it because he thought if we were to send robots to other solar systems, this is how they would procreate and create other copies of themselves. So really interesting. Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so where do we go from here? So physics has come to a point where it's kind of hitting walls, and people are expecting a lot from it. How could it explain our own conscious experience? And there's a couple champions of this. There's also this whole new field of consciousness studies arising. And so here's Bernard Carr. He is a cosmologist and physicist out of Oxford. And he says things like how consciousness is a fundamental and not an incidental feature of the universe. It doesn't just emerge. Our brains aren't just a bunch of matter, and then from it, consciousness emerges. He says it's not possible. Even if you take that approach, it would mean the whole universe is conscious, because if our brains be conscious, then the universe as a whole could become conscious. But he also says the universe is more like a mental structure than a physical structure, and that the next paradigm shift in physics is one that would incorporate mentality. So, and then here's Donald Hoffman. He's a neuroscientist out of UC Irvine.
Sorry.
That's okay. He created things like conscious realism and the multimodal user interface theory. I mean, conscious realism says like consciousness is reality, and that the physicality is just an illusion on top of it. And that multimodal user interface theory is interesting. It says that each species, what they experience isn't a direct like truth about what's happening outside of them. It's something specific to that species that works for them and how they could function in the world. So it's almost like a different application, software application or something. Like a bug isn't going to be like seeing you. A bug could have a whole different concept of what's going on and seeing totally different things, but it works for the bug. Mm-hmm. He's currently attempting to create a mathematical framework of consciousness from which the laws of physics emerge. That's a pretty hefty task to take on, and pretty impossible. And he even says there's no way I'm going to do this correctly, but he's trying because he knows that there's something there. There's got to be something there. Yeah. And this is where I think how we could push this forward from here. Because coming at this from a total logical, mathematical, viewpoint is going to be totally impossible. It's like, I don't know, trying to like sail the ocean on a like fishing boat when you have no maps and don't know how to read the stars, right? And you're trying to get to Australia from like Denmark or something. So I just want to like show how science has progressed throughout history through the power of dreams. And for some reason, it's not big in the scientific community anymore, dream work, but it always has, and it's always inspired huge advances. It started with Imhotep and his sleep trances. Man, this is a slide you kind of inspired me to put in that I took out. But the origin of science itself has the same origin of dream work. Back in ancient Egypt, there was Imhotep around, 4,500 years ago. He was a vizier of King Zoser, and he was probably the architect of the Step Pyramid, which is the immediate predecessor of the Great Pyramids. He was a poet, an astronomer, a mathematician. He invented the science of medicine. He was the guy being like, hey, diseases aren't afflicted by gods or curses or evil spirits. They're naturally occurring. That was his idea. He invented the medical science. He also invented these, or at least played a huge role in getting them up and running and organizing how they worked, were these sleep temples, where people would go for healing. And they come to these ancient Egyptian temples, such as, I forget the name of it, but they would meet these priests. These priests would lead them through meditations, from which they probably kind of like hypnosis. They'd fall asleep in these trances. They'd have dreams. They'd share the dreams to the priest in the morning, and the priest would give them some kind of procedure to cure themselves, some kind of prescription. And he also was deified as the god of science and wisdom and medicine. Let's go to Descartes, like Rene Descartes. I mean, he was inspired to go into philosophy, or his life's work, which was doing things like creating the XY coordinate system, of which we wouldn't have any physics without, and statements like "I think, therefore I am," which is the fundamental axiom of modern consciousness studies. He had a life-changing night of dreaming, where he saw a book of knowledge, and he saw a lot of powerful natural disasters like thunder and lightning. And he woke up and knew he was supposed to try to bring knowledge to the world. There is Dmitri Mendeleev, who invented the periodic table of elements. He couldn't figure out how the elements work together. He had a dream of cards falling on a table in a pattern. He woke up and drew the periodic table of elements. There is Einstein, who is obviously a daydream practitioner with his thought experiments, right? And had a huge imagination. But what inspired relativity was a dream he had where he was riding on a sled down a hill near the speed of light. Yeah, and these are just a few of them of examples. I mean, history is filled with them. But we'll get to one more. Yeah, thanks for all right. So how could we use dreams to discover more about physics and what's behind consciousness and how it works? Here's a dream. This is a super interesting one too. This is on that same night actually, and it started out. It was really interesting. It started out. I was in this gray space, which happens to lucid dreamers, where there are these gray cubes, and they're all semi-transparent and converging in the middle where it was a bit darker. And I was digging into them, trying to get into a dream, and I was saying, "Show me parts of my subconscious. Show me parts of my subconscious." And I ended up popping into a dream scene outside of a community center with a line of people waiting to meet me. There was a female Olympic rock climber, it seemed like it was the first one, and there's like people of all ages and genders and health situations. I meet them all, and I go outside, and there's three guys talking, and I'm standing by this metal chain link fence, and I just start swiping my hand through the metal pole, just like this, like it was made of light, like it was nothing. And then the guys are talking about something. I just like kind of pay attention to them for a second, and I swipe my hand, and it just hits a hard pole. It's like bam, and I look and I go, that shouldn't have happened. This is a dream. That pole's not real, And then I swipe my hand through it again, and this time it goes through, but it feels like it's made of energy, and it pushes my hand down, so my hand comes out like this. It goes like that. It feels like it was like a column of wind or water. And to me, that just seems like, yeah, that hard surface in the dream was made of some kind of conscious energy coming from me and my attention. And so, really, I would say, if physicists or any scientists could really explore their dreams, what we could do is we could make a map of reality. It's not going to be a map of Earth like we have now, where we take a big picture from a photograph from space, but what it could be like is like the ancient explorers exploring the seas and the world, and they would draw these maps, and they could pull together something that makes a lot of sense and sure looks a lot like what the world really looks like. It might not be perfect what we get out of it, but at least it's a way forward. And so I would like to kind of have a throwback to the Dreamtime. We have this concept of space-time that this universe is made of. Behind it, I think there is something, like Donald Hoffman says, of which modern physics could arise from. And what that is the Dreamtime. And it's the evolution of space-time, and it's a deeper layer. And this is Wolfgang Pauli, who was a prolific dreamer, who was Carl Jung's main research specimen, or whatever. He, I think, recorded 1,500 dreams in 3 years, of which Carl Jung worked with. And he came up with the concept of electron spin, and was one of the main founders of quantum theory. And he has this quote: "It would be most satisfactory if all of physics and psyche could be seen as complementary aspects of the same reality." So this will conclude the talk, and I would just say, if any of you are interested in exploring the Dreamtime, I have some tips. You could acknowledge the super intelligent part of your mind that creates your dream, the one that you ask the prompts to. There is part of our psyche that is much more intelligent than us and connected to some kind of infinite amount of information. And just acknowledging that exists itself is a very powerful thing. It's what we talk to through intuition. It seems to be connected to the multiverse itself. Think about dreams during your waking day. Just think about them sometimes, because they're cool. And get enough sleep and pay off any sleep debt, because the more well-rested you are, the longer REM periods will be, and the better your memory will be. When you wake in the morning or night, don't move, don't think, and don't open your eyes. Just try to think of one question: what was I just doing? Or where was I? Give yourself at least a minute to do that. And you'll see, you could start having memories flood in from dream experiences. talk to your dreaming mind before falling asleep. Just, it's there. And if you talk to it, it'll listen. It's like it sends us dreams, like these voicemails we never listen to. We can't even remember them. Like, this is more like picking up the phone and calling it back. Just talk to it. That's all you gotta do. Ask it for gifts, you know. View your sleep as a meditation and or a ceremony. Like, you know, don't just like watch TV, turn off, fall asleep. Like make a ritual out of it and give it the honor it deserves. And when you remember a dream or an image, just record it. You could write it down. You could, there are apps out there. I have some friends who make a really cool app that we use, and we could even share dreams with each other. It's a way faster way to do it. But even writing anything down, like not even the whole dream, just like a little bit. Talk about your dreams with someone else. This is a really good one. I do this with my wife all the time, and all of a sudden she used to remember no dreams. She used to remember dreams every day now. And it's just because we talk about it. She's not doing these things. I'm gonna tell her to do it. She's like doesn't actually do it. I understand because we have 2 little kids and our life is busy, but like just talking about it with someone is powerful. Don't try too hard to always interpret a dream. Let the dream experience be. I know like a lot of people, the first thing they say is like, hey, what does this mean? What does my dream mean? You know, if it's not that important what it means all the time. What is often important is experience you have, and you might have grown during your experience. And if there is a message your dreaming mind wants to give you, it'll make it easy. It'll give you a dream that's easy to interpret for you. So don't put so much importance on interpretation. It's wonderful. It's great if you can afford a Jungian psychologist, but it's not all that important. Thank your dreaming mind when it gives you a valuable dream, just like you would a person who gives you a gift. So that is it. Thank you all. And if you have any questions.
For a bit, I got into the Toltec lucid dreamings and the rituals you do to ask for what you want and move your hand, see if you're dreaming. Do you do that stuff, or you just?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, I have 2 main reality checks I do. So if there's reality triggers and reality checks. So let's say if I see a mirror, that's one of my big dream tools. That'd be like, oh, maybe I'm dreaming, right? At that point, I could see if my hair's long, or I could look at my hands. You have to do it a couple times. You look at your hands, both sides, look away, look back at your hands, and see if they seem weird. Because often they are weird. They're shaped differently, your fingers are shorter, they're in the wrong order, your thumb's missing, things like that. The other one is jumping in the air. So like, you gotta do it twice. Because often I'll be in a dream, I'll jump in the air, and then I'll jump in the air a second time, and then I'll stay. Yeah, so those are my 2 favorites.
So that means you're in the dream.
That means that, yeah, if you stay in the air, you're in a dream. If you have no thumbs, and you know, in a way, like you have thumbs, you're in a dream. Yeah.
That's funny because AI has a hard time drawing hands. They'll be at like 7 digits. That's like,
Hey, that's dreaming. Yeah.
Thank you for that great overview. I thought
Yeah.
that was great.
Oh, you're
I mean,
welcome.
go from dreams and then trying to interpret, you know, from physics, and that's great. And a lot of it is theory, but we're trying to understand it.
Yeah.
And so your dream is probably just some microorganisms going pop, pop, pop in your microtubules in your frontal part of your brain, you know, whatever it is.
Uh-huh.
But to realize it may also be putting us into a different dimension.
Mm-hmm.
And that dimension may have all different rules and laws of nature and understanding. So my question is, in that other dimension, will we understand the dream better than we do now, which is sometimes silly, you know?
Oh, totally. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think once you have the nobody really knows, feeling about it, it's like, it doesn't really matter if this is you're reading the absolute truth or not. It's like it opens your mind and you have fun exploring. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That was really a deep dive into so many things. Are you familiar at all with the dream cards that were based on Jungian symbols?
Yeah, like the oracle cards?
Yeah.
I saw them on a shopping cart once, but I haven't ever looked at them.
No, they're out of print now.
Oh.
And the way that they do it is there'll be a concept, like, let's say exploration. And then it would be like 7 different images. And so it's helpful for me now in trying to record my dreams, not to try to do it in kind of a linear writing, but just record the same images that came through. And see then if there's a kind of theme.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
old
cool.
saying of 10,000 words in an image.
Yeah, drawing your dreams out. For sure.
Are you familiar with the Edgar Casey material?
A little bit, but not enough.
He was a dreamer,
Yeah.
and so people would write him a letter, a question for their health, and he would go into dream, and then he would give them many practical ways to heal. He did this thousands of times,
Wow.
and it's all recorded
Amazing.
in Virginia Beach.
Uh-huh.
And there's a foundation and stuff. My grandma was really into it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of books written.
Yeah,
Lots.
yeah. So Edgar Casey might fascinate you.
For sure. I heard he would predict dreams people would have in the future, and then they would have those dreams.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
he was with that.
He has some wild stuff, really wild stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of his ideas of what the future might be
Uh-huh.
have actually happened.
Yeah. And I think we all have abilities like this. Maybe some people have a little more naturally than others, but just like how everyone could play guitar if they really wanted to. You know, it might not be like Jimi Hendrix or something, but like you could probably play some good songs. And I think, you know, he just recognized power and possibility through dream work. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I do this, like, it just happens for me. I never studied anything. I just, like, I get information. You know, I go to, like, other dimensions and stuff. I do healing, you know, but sometimes I have a dream and I am aware it was a dream. I know what's going on, and it's usually with someone I know. And then I would be like, okay, I'm gonna like get up now, use the bathroom, and then I'll come back here. And they'll be like, no, 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 no. If you wake up now, you're not coming back here. So is there a way, I always wonder, like, and they usually wake me up. Like, if there's a dream I need to remember, like, I wake up. So yeah, is there like a way to get back into it when you are consciously aware of it and step out of it? And like, how do you go back? Because then I'm like, crap, you know?
Yeah. I think the more you wake up, the harder it will be. Like, you might slightly wake up and just be lying there, and then you can go back into it. Like, yeah, that's easy. If you get up and go to the bathroom and come back to bed, that's gonna be much more difficult. But I still think it's possible. What you'd have to do is to really imagine that dream scene. And what sort of like my teacher Robert Wagner would say is you imagine that you are an object in that dream scene. So if there's a lamp in that scene, imagine that you are the lamp, and imagine the scene from the lamp's perspective. And you could slowly fall asleep and go from using your active imagination, which is essentially just imagination, and your body will fall asleep, and the dream could stabilize around that, and you could enter a dream that way. So I think it is possible, but you have to get really good at focusing, and you have to.
Do you know you're a healer?
Oh, I am. I do. I'm a psychic and I heal.
Okay, right on. So am I. I'm a psychic. I'm a tarot reader, and I also have my dreams. But I had to re-ask above, and I'm like, does she know? And I didn't get no answer. I'm a psychic also.
Yeah, so for me, just
Okay,
happens.
cool.
It's like, I have no clue, but it's like, if I need to remember, like, and then, yeah, it's just like, I get a lot of stuff.
Can I?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I'm a little shy. So I think it's really cool you're a psychic because I had to re-ask myself. If you are, and you definitely do have a gift. So I'm a psychic, but my husband, he has a gift. He can talk to the jinn, or the jinn. It's spelled D-J-I-N-N. But he has that gift, so he can use them. So like he was saying, and they have their own families, and they have their own universe. And so basically, jinns, I think they were after, there's a before or after Christ, but I've also been through the apocalypse twice. It's nasty.
It's a dream.
Yeah,
Oh,
apocalypse twice.
I've seen that too.
It's so real because you can see all the colors, you can see everything happening. But he's right, 'cause some of the stuff I dream, I try to go back into it, but I can't. And then I wake up one time like just singing, and recently, last night, I was, I guess I was with 007 playing the N64 with my husband. And I'm like, did you know that like I was helping you on a mission? And he's like, oh no, but I'm capable of going into other people's dreams. So I went to my friend's.
Was viewing in the
Yeah,
dreams.
so my friend woke up, and we woke up, I think I was like a little late from like 15 minutes before she woke up, but I asked her and I said, did something happen to you? She goes, yeah, I was in a cabin. I was in a house and I ran out, and I go, do you remember leaving? Because I was leaving the same cabin you were. And she goes, no. I said, I just finished your dream, because she was scared and she was in another room, but she couldn't leave. Like, she was like, I'm lost. I said, I just helped you get out because using her as a vessel. I was like, okay, you did leave. But that was also her past life, because I have a medium friend in Medford, and she said that her past life she got like kind of killed by a horse. Nobody wants to hear that, but he's right. But I think also my dreams have to do with like planets aligning, stars and planets. I've been all the way to the universe, which is scary, but I also astral project a lot. But I heard that if you astral project the string, you astral project for so long, you won't come back. And then the other one is I've seen the Wendigo twice. I went to a cabin, and it was like it was all black out in the forest, and it had red dots, almost like battleship, going really, really fast. And it's weird because in the dream you don't know what it is. Because my husband says when you're in your dream, it could be hours, or it could be within like 5 minutes, and then that's it. Because time is just, there's no time. This is the only time that we have. But once we get into astral projecting, we can travel and remote see stuff. And so I saw the Jinn, and my brother was there. So I was gonna ask. I have people that are alive that are in my dream. Did I bring them into the dream? Because I'm pretty sure I did. So my brother came in, and he's all like trying to kill the Jinn. I'm like, no, you can't do that. And then so I got a book and I looked into it. I guess you're supposed to kill it with the heart.
Yeah.
But I've seen like shadow people and stuff, so I'm able to see certain things. And then before I came here, like, it's weird because when people astral project or do any of that stuff, when you go outside, everything slows down. It depends. Have you ever had that happen where everything slows down when you go outside, or either it speeds up?
Oh man,
It's kind of like deja
usually when I'm astral
vu.
projecting, I'm in my room, I'm sleeping in, I try to go outside, and then I wake up.
It's
As
like-
I'm flying out the window.
Yeah, it's like time slows down for me. But other than that, yeah, I'm a psychic and I do tarot divination and stuff.
Yeah, if there are people in their dreams ask them, hey, did you dream about me last night too? And also, I mean, like, oh man, I had this dream where I thought I was with my wife. There's a woman who looked a lot like my wife. And then I became lucid, and I was like, hey, are you Monica? And she's like, no. But her eyes look just like Monica, and the face you would make look just like Monica.
But yeah, I'm happy to be psychic so much, so that's rad. I had to ask, and I thought I was the only one, so that's right.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's interesting.
Have you ever read The King of Antar Waiting for You?
Oh yeah, I love that book.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that book.
Yeah.
I got it at a garage sale down the street from my house.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to build one of those dreaming caves in my backyard. Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh.
And then I was just going to ask you, do you ever do anything with quantum physics right now since they're finishing school?
No, I'm not a working physicist. I became a software engineer, and yeah, I'm a dreamer, I guess. But I wanted to go that route, but
You
yeah, I didn't.
explained it so nicely. You explained some terms that when I was a middle school teacher because learning disabilities, and there was a special math program from UC Davis, and I brought it in and I taught it to my kids, but I didn't know what half the stuff were, like the imaginary numbers and all that stuff, but I taught them with books then. So when you said that, I go, oh yeah, so it did mean something.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
Good job.
It
Thanks.
was great.
Thank you.
I have two questions.
Uh-huh.
Did you do the artwork yourself?
No. Well, I kind of did. I used ChatGPT. They have this new AI called DALL-E, which you could give it a prompt and it'll create custom images for you. So, I mean, I would just take my I kind of learned how to prompt it one afternoon. You can do different art styles, but it became smarter just like a couple weeks ago. And so the more recent ones I made were way easier to make than the ones I was making like a month ago. So I was able to kind of create images that looked very similar to what I saw in my dreams. It's amazing.
That's amazing.
It only takes about 10 seconds or maybe 20 seconds for it to show.
Yeah, I don't think you'll find an image of a pink
A pink packer in a blue tuxedo and a frilly white shirt and a green background? No. I'm not gonna find
It
that.
was elegant.
That was one elegant cat spirit being. Yeah. Uh-huh.
I forgot to say, I'm also a prophet dreamer, so I've seen like Jesus and everything.
Wow.
Mine's a little different than yours, your story, but mine's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
But I don't see my body, I just see the POV, but I don't see my hands or anything. And I do feel like Superwoman when I because you can go everywhere.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Right. You can see anything. It's infinite
So,
possibilities.
if everything is vibrations, what is it, what kind of common consensus do we all come to that's a tree or that's a bush? I mean, we're all seeing, funny vibrations, and I know animals see something different, but how come we agree on so much?
Yeah, well, this seems to be a consensus reality, where a dream is one of our own reality. Or I could say maybe the dream figures in our dream is their consensus reality. And if I'm in my lucid dream, I'm essentially an incarnation of God, and they're just dream figures. But it seems like it's not as easy to do here what I could do in dreams. Like I can't just I can't fly through that window, right? There's like a different laws are happening here, and our powers are more limited.
Well, I think that's why there's telepathy in the dream, because language is limited. And we're conditioned like, okay, this is a chair, this is a table. But the telepathy, like all my dreams, like I don't speak. It's all telepathy, because then you're like communicating, heart to heart. There's no language. And
You don't speak in your dreams at all?
very rarely. It's all
Really?
telepathics.
Whoa, that's
Yeah, so it's because our mind is again limited with language, but when we use telepathy, then you can send images and it's just a knowing, so you're trespassing, the limitations of the human, conditioning.
Wow, that's amazing. I definitely talk to people in my dreams. I've heard of someone just.
I mean, I hear stuff too, but a lot of it is just a knowing, whether it's a person or animals. Yeah,
Super
I mean
cool.
that's what I've noticed with me at least.
Wow, amazing. Yeah.
I like that question. That's cool.
Well,
Yeah, I could get into that more.
yeah,
little bit, but-
there are these different levels of consciousness and source, and it's reflected in the body, like the heart and the liver. Like the liver does many thousands of things without us thinking a thing about it.
Yeah.
It does over 10,000 things or something. I
Yeah.
don't know. It's very many. That's why they can't make a fake liver.
Yeah.
But they'd like to. They can't do it because we're not at that level. But what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot going on that we never know about. And it's really interesting. In law, they'll have witnesses to an event. They'll say, oh, this happened. And can you identify this? And what happened? And the 5 different people will give very different stories.
Yeah.
And there's a movie in Japan about these 3 people stuck in a monsoon, and they're all recalling a certain event. And they say, oh, this happened. They tell the event, and they show it in the movie, and then he says, oh, that's interesting. I know, I was there at that event, and this is what happened, and it's a completely different story. And then another guy says, oh, you really got that wrong. Here's what really happened. And they're all the same characters, and they all went through similar things. But it's just like, what is reality,
Yeah.
It's a very individual
It's all a matter of perspective.
experience, isn't
Reality
it?
isn't real.
Yeah.
But it is real, and we do share very powerful things, but it's all, like even listening to music or something.
It's like there's a real, but there's a whole lot more going on.
But look at how you were able to work with your AI thing, and it actually, as you went into harmony with it, and it went into harmony with you,
Yeah.
it was sharing your vision in a unique way, I mean, that's magical.
It really is magical.
And it's saying
A little
something about
spooky.
reality. It's not just AI. It's saying that reality itself is listening to us, maybe. I don't know. I think it's really
Yeah, sometimes I send a prompt now, like also send a intention, like something more cosmic through. Be like, oh, give me back the image that I really want, you know? And, I don't know, it's just kind of like an intuitive thing I started doing. Almost like sending a prayer about the
What's the
image.
program called that does the picture?
DALL-E, which is made by OpenAI, who makes ChatGPT. So you could go onto ChatGPT and request that it uses DALL-E. Though you might have to be signed up for ChatGPT.
So it's the word of the artist Dolly.
DALL-E, yeah, named after DALL-E, who was a dream worker, by the way.
Oh.
You know, he would sit in a chair, hold a metal key with a ceramic plate underneath, and then when he'd fall asleep, the key would hit the plate and wake him up, and his hypnagogic imagery he was seeing, he would get up and paint it. That's, how else do you invent surrealism, right? Yeah. And then, so, yeah.
How do you spell Dolly?
DALE dash capital E.
You know, it was interesting when I did take once lucid dreaming class, and there's like a protocol to follow, and but it was very exhausting because I would wake up like 10 times or so a night, or well, I mean it was like 5 or more after each dream.
Well,
Yeah, so I would like write it down,
Yeah.
and when I would wake up in the morning, I was exhausted. So
Yeah.
I kind of told my guys, I'm like, no more.
Yeah, it's like it's a little bit too harsh, you know. I've was doing that like maybe last summer when I was really enthusiastic. I'm still enthusiastic, but I've learned how to be more wise about it.
So were you exhausted too?
Yeah, I would
Okay.
totally get exhausted. So yeah, I've like learned about sleep. I do yoga nidra in the middle of the day. I try to take at least like a 15-20 minute rest period where I try to turn my mind off and let my body rest. That really helps. Starting to sleep in 90-minute cycles throughout your day. Because it really was more important is how many sleep cycles you get per week than how many hours of sleep you get per night. I think you should be aiming for 35 sleep cycles per week if you can. And that's a better way to think about it. You don't even need that many, really.
So now you just remember like one dream, but
I try not to go so hard. Like I don't try to do every other. So Ed Kellogg is one of the most powerful lucid dreamers in the world, and he lives in Talent. And he's known as a wizard in the dreaming community. And he told me, would you weightlift heavy weights every day? And I'm like, no. So well, don't try to lucid dream every day either. You do it when you're ready for it. So I do it when I'm really well rested. Is when a night I'll attempt to lucid
I
dream.
think it was like an intention setting that was in that class, and it was like, yeah, I remember, but I was super exhausted. I was like, no.
And you
that's
know what?
not
You could
gonna
record
work.
one dream and say that's enough for the night and sleep the rest of
Yeah.
the morning, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to go so hard. It's really finding that balance. But I would say, you know, if you're interested, don't just take what they were saying. Like, just make it work for your life and just turn the volume down
Right.
because it's totally worth it.
That's why I quit lucid dreaming too, because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
It's
I just
interesting
got back in
feedback.
there.
Yeah. So I want to teach lucid dreaming soon, and I
Well,
think
yeah,
that's
so
one thing
that's
about-
a side effect for me.
that's a good feedback to hear because it's true for me too. I don't want to be exhausted all day. I like being awake and navigating this world.
Because then it takes time to like write it down, you know, and it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
That's the other thing. You don't have to
feels like
write down all your dreams. You can just write down the dreams that really stood out to you, or just little snippets of your dreams. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe it was just the practice that you had to do for like to get you into it, but again, it was like for a week that I kind of did it, and
Yeah.
okay.
It sounds like a pretty masculine approach, and if I were you, I'd take a very more feminine
I
approach.
didn't finish it even. I was like, okay, I got what I needed, I know how to do it, and I was like, I think that's it.
My female friends who are dreamers have a different way of going about it than
It was
The
a
man?
woman teaching it.
there's a woman teaching it. Oh, interesting. Well, she's a more masculine approach woman, you know. Yeah.
I would teach her how I learned it too, and she was teaching how she learned it.
Yeah.
So if one wanted to learn the more feminine way of, so how would I do that?
Yeah, so they would tell me that these dreams are gifts, and you just request it, and it comes when it comes, and you kind of flow with it more, and you don't do harsh things like waking yourself up all the time. I mean, I take a balanced approach. I like to have my regimens, and I like to put effort in. I think that's necessary. But at the same time, it's more of like, is it an on week? Is it an off week? Like, what's happening with the moon this week? What's happening, with your hormones in your body? Like, it's more of letting nature bring it to you, as opposed to trying to like take it, right? So I like to do a little bit more like a dance. Like, I put in effort, but I'm not so attached to the outcome. Sometimes it comes really easy. Sometimes it's more difficult. And so in those difficult times, like, just get as much sleep as I can, because pretty soon it'll turn back on again, and I'll be well rested enough. I don't really feel like sleeping. I feel like lucid dreaming. And if I miss a couple hours of sleep that night, it doesn't actually matter. Because sometimes you could wake up super energized from a lucid dream and inspired. Yeah.
So if you are going to teach lucid dreaming, are you going to do it online because you're leaving the country?
Yeah, I do it online.
And how do we
And I'm
get-
coming back in a couple of years.
Okay, how do we get on your mailing list?
Yeah, just leave me your email.
Okay.
Just write on paper and give it to me.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd be great.
So you talked about precognition.
Yeah.
So I've had that since college,
Oh, yeah.
and in the beginning it was like I couldn't find anybody else who that ever happened to, and now I still don't find many people
Oh,
who do
all
that.
over
Am I
the
just
place.
not asking?
You're just not asking.
Okay.
I think everyone has precognitive dreams. Even people who don't consider themselves dreamers. Some of my friends who say they have a couple profound dreams a year, it's like, oh, but I do have precognitive dreams. Talk to Marcia Emery in town. She is the precognitive expert in the dreaming community, and she lives here.
What name
Yeah.
again was it?
Marcia Emery.
I've had dreams where someone was like sick with some disease,
Mm-hmm.
and that's people I know.
Yeah.
I mean, those are like the most extreme ones, and they would tell me why they're leaving the body,
Really?
and they would die like within a couple of weeks and months.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I had a dream of a friend of mine who had a disease, and I ended up calling him like a couple days later and telling him about the dream. He's kind of a hypochondriac, and I was like, oh, should I have told him that? But I would have felt so bad if he like died.
I never shared
And I
them.
never told him that dream. So I told him to go to the doctor. Yeah.
It's tough. It's like when you know it's coming, how do you still like support and stuff, And then I have people coming after they die to me and telling me again, why is it a lot of people I don't even like have a relationship with.
Yeah.
It's scary, man, some of it, where like you don't want to see some of it,
Totally. Yeah, I think when you're powerful in the dream realm, other entities in the dream realm will recognize that.
Oh, I've
Quality
had
of
like
contact.
multiple psychic attacks too in the dreams or astral traveling.
Mm. Yeah.
So do you set like protection before you go to
Very
bed?
often,
Or just like
yeah.
all the time?
And I'm also, they would wake me up if there's something trying, because they can get to me during the day, but during the sleep time it happens. And also what I was told is when you go into like other dimensions in the dream, you go through like dimensions that are not so high in frequency, so that's where you can get a ton of stuff onto you. So it's, you have to like, there's a protocol you have to follow by like clearing and protecting before you go into and do this type of work,
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing to point out. Yeah, because when you just like doing psychedelics too, you're like blasting open your consciousness.
Because you're living your body, and you're
Yeah.
like, who knows where you're at. So your body is there unprotected.
Yeah. There's some Tibetan, I was reading Tibetan yogas of dreams and sleep, where the author, who's a lama, suggests imagining dakinis, or these female goddesses, surrounding you, and they're next to you, they're above you, below you, outside of your house, walking on the sidewalk. You just imagine them all over the place. That was one practice I read recently. Yeah. I also surround my daughters with a bubble of protection.
That's
Yeah.
what I do.
You put yourself in a bubble? Yeah. Yeah, so lots of stuff out there. Also, Robert Moss writes a lot about this. He's another dream teacher, more of a shamanic dream teacher. He talks about protecting yourself a lot. Yeah. I could probably take one last question, because it's just about 9. We have have to close over here.
Thank you so much, that was so
Yes,
fascinating.
thank you.
And every,
Yeah. Thank all of you for, I really appreciate you coming and listening.